Humble yourself. It's God that lifts you up, and that's what we have to be. The essential elements of discipleship was found in John chapter 13, verse 14. You know what the essential elements were? That's where he washed the disciples' feet, and he told them to do that unto others, to become the servants of others. That's what he calls us to do. He doesn't call us into high positions. He doesn't say, hey, look at you, you're exalted, and do this. He says, hey, humble yourselves. So let me tell you something. Peter 5:5, 1 Peter 5:5 says that, matter of fact, turn over there. I want you to see this. Everybody knows this passage. They can never remember where it is. It says, likewise, you younger, submit unto the elder. Yea, all of you be subject one to another, and be clothed with humility. For God resisteth the proud, and gives grace to the humble. He's called us to be humble. He's called us to put off everything else. At first, let me tell you something. At first, as you're trying to put on humility and you're striving to empty yourself, this is the greatest. Now listen to this. This is the grace. Grace in truth, but means simply consent to let God be all, to surrender himself to God's working alone. That's what it means to be humble, to empty yourself unto God and allow God to do his work. Just as water always seeks and fills the lowest place, so the moment God finds men abased and empty, his glory and power, he puts his glory and power he exalts and blesses us. So when we are abased, what does he do? He fills us with his power and his glory to bless us. So that's how we get more of God. But you know what? There's something that happens. When we try to submit to God and humble ourselves, there's something that happens, is it not? Well, here's what it is. At first, it may appear hard. That is only because of your pride, which still considers itself something. Did you catch what he just said there? This is Andrew Murray that said that. He said, at first, it may appear hard. That is only because your pride, which still considers itself something. You know how you're supposed to consider yourself? As nothing. You're nothing. You know what each and every one of you are in this room? Worm. No, I'm sorry. Worm dirt. Yeah. You're lower than a worm. And I know a lot of people want to get mad at me when I say stuff, but let me tell you something. You're lower than a worm. And if you're getting mad and you're having mean thoughts about me, that's your pride. How's that feel? That'll really crush your pride, won't it? But listen. What we do is, as human beings, and I can tell each and every one of you, know what we do? We stand up and we want to say, look at me. Do we not? Look what I've done. I'm better than Mike. I'm better than Roger. Don't we? Is that not how it is? We try to put ourselves above somebody, and you know how you're supposed to see yourself? You know how Jesus saw himself? As a servant to us. Jesus even humbly washed the feet of the very man that was going to betray him. Are you willing to humble yourselves? Because the chiefest grace is humility. And honestly, you cannot have salvation without humility. Because it's humility that we humble ourselves and we make ourselves low and we say, God, forgive me of my sin. Forgive me of the wickedness that's in here. Forgive me, Lord. That's first where salvation comes. And to draw closer to Christ, you become more and more humble. As I was reading this book, and as I was thinking about the martyrs, those over in Pakistan, those over in India, as they humble themselves to the point that they actually walk into places where they are going to be martyred or can be martyred, but it's out of humility to serve others. They know they're going to be martyred. They know they're going to be beat. But it's out of humility to Christ, because they esteem those people higher than themselves. Where do you stand with this? Where do you stand with God in humility? Where do you stand with man in humility? Because you know what? Humility is the first of the fruits. And we have to rely on God, because we cannot have humility on ourselves. We have to ask God for that humility. Doesn't matter what he did to me. Doesn't matter what she does to me. You know what matters? Is I am humble before God. And you know what? Tyler could hit me, but I'll still serve him. Because you know what? That's what Christ told me to do. As Christ was being beaten, as Christ was being spit upon, he was serving each and every one of us. We don't know how many on that day of crucifixion that came to Christ and understood that he was the Son of God after the crucifixion. But he come to serve man, to give them salvation. We're supposed to serve God and man. The lowest one, the humble one, will be the greatest in the kingdom. Let's pray. Father, this is actually a very hard teaching for us. It really is, Lord. And Father, I pray that you will speak to our hearts. And Father, I pray for these in this congregation today, that you crush the pride. Father, I pray that you give us humility. If Christ thought it was that important to be humble, as he was the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, how much should we humiliate ourselves and humble ourselves before you and before the world? God, I give it to you. Humble this man. Give me humility. Start here in the house of God. Judgment starts in the house of God. Start changing us to glorify you, Lord. May your Son get the glory in our lives, Father. In Jesus' holy name.